Koe no, kia ora tātou. Kia ora tātou, kua tae mai nei tēnei rā. Nau mai, haere mai. Haere mai ki tūranga wahene, ki tūranga tāne, ko te mata tēnā o tō tātou tipono o te awariki. Mauria mai o tini mate, o tātou tini mate kia tangihia, kia mihia, kia poroporo akitia. No reire nau mai, haere mai, tai whakalunga, tai whakaloro, haere mai ki te Tairāwhiti, ki tēnei o ngā kura wānanga, kura nui, kura roa. Ka tira, huri noi tō tātou whare, ko te kaupapa, anei ko Tātau Tātau. Ko te kaupapa, ko te pāwaharoa o tō Tātau Trust, o te Tairāwhiti. Ko te kaupapa, te wero ki ngā tāngata nei, e noho nei, i rungi te ahurewa tapu o tō Tātau Trust. No reire e hika mā, tēnei au, te tuku mihi atu nei ki a koutou katoa, kua tai mai nei tēnei poa. A nei rata tātou karakia, hei hua i te hualahi, hei hura hoki i te hualahi, ki a pai ei tā tātou noho tahi i tēnei wā. Ka hura tū manawa wiri, ka hura tū manawa pore, ka hura tū manawa uha. Te rea no te iki, te moana, te pipihā, whakaea, whakaoturangi, he pau, he taketake. He urumani, he roki hau. Ko tō manawa, ko tako manawa, ko te manawa nui nōrengi, ko whakaputi ki te whai au ki te ao marama. Whāno, tau mai te mauri a ka haumi e. Hui e! No, we're not going to get away with that one. Wake up, whāno, hana mai te toki haumi e, hui e! That's better, thank you.
I'm going to start by introducing my fellow trustees to you. First, can I introduce Elsa Cufflet, Elsa, John Clark, Jill Crisp, Lyle Evans, Shannon Dowsing. Having introduced Shannon, I need to tell you that he is the Mayor's appointee to the Trust. So I just want to acknowledge the contributions that Ming Foon and the Hep Stoltz have made individually in the year in review. Can I now introduce to you Kristen Koheri-Suta. Kristen has just joined the board. Kristen has replaced Tarau Kupenga, who retired as a trustee on the 30th of June. I record Tarau's apologies for tonight. This year we reflect on a year of connection, collaboration, change and challenge. So to present this year in review, I'm going to start with a few highlights, and then Gav Murphy, Chief Executive of the Trust, will then discuss some specific projects, followed by Eastland Group Chief Executive Matt Todd. At last year's AGM, we signalled our intent to embark on a journey of change to better connect with our diverse communities with greater clarity and to demonstrate our focus on regional well-being. Our communities told us that they wanted the Trust to reflect shared pride, shared prosperity and shared opportunity. Months of engagement throughout our region resulted in our new tohu and name, Trust Tairāwhiti. Please turn your attention to the screen for a recap of our new brand.
Our great journey began more than 25 years ago. With the passage of time, our vision has become clearer. Transforming Tairāwhiti into a place of te mana, shared pride, where culture connects, relationships empower, and nature endures. Te ihi, shared prosperity, where people flourish, business booms, and tourism thrives. Te wehi, shared opportunity, where children dream, communities unite, and futures inspire. As the sun rises over Tairāwhiti, you'll find our people where they are needed most, at the heart of our communities, on this journey of transformation. Kaitiaki of precious taonga, shared for generations to come. We are Trust Tairāwhiti. Tātau Tātau.
Trust Tairāwhiti is a tohu for the people of Tairāwhiti. The Trust Tairāwhiti Tohu invites our communities to walk through the waharoa on the pathway to shared well-being. Trustees and staff continued our journey towards understanding well-being in Tairāwhiti. We are delighted to be releasing He Rangitapu He Tohu Ora, our regional wellbeing framework tonight. This framework is a result of extensive community engagement which involved over 1,200 people. As well as introducing the framework, we will provide an idea of how the Trust intends to use it to make all Trust decisions moving forward. February and March saw us feel the unprecedented impact of the global pandemic, COVID-19. The regional impact started in the forestry sector, then moved to affect the lives of every one of us. We're proud of the role we played as the Trust, adapting to provide COVID-19 specific funding, surveying our communities to lobby government, providing insights into the real impact on the ground in Tairāwhiti. I'd like to acknowledge the performance of Eastland Group. The return of $12.3 million made up of dividends and interest on capital notes to Trust Tairāwhiti was also one of the highest in the group's history, even with the impacts of COVID felt during the last 2 months of the financial year. It's a credit to the team at Eastland Group that they have continued to operate critical regional infrastructure safely and efficiently during these difficult times. The first stage of Gisborne Airport's new terminal, a project co-funded by the Provincial Growth Fund, Trust Tairāwhiti and Eastland Group, opened late last year. The second and final stage, delayed by COVID, as so many things have been, will open by the end of this year. Matt Todd may add some detail on this shortly. To that point, Eastland Group will speak and answer some questions during this evening, but I do want to remind you that this is Trust Tairāwhiti's AGM, not the AGM of Eastland Group Limited. Together with Eastland Group, the Trust has also joined the Climate Leaders Coalition, where we are working to measure and reduce our emissions. Although I have to say, when I look outside the door at the number of cars that are parked outside this hall tonight, I know we have work to do, thanks to those, of course, who arrived in electric vehicles. The refreshed Tairāwhiti Economic Action Plan, released in December, sees many changes made to the previous version. Significantly, the aspirations of all Tairāwhiti iwi are present in the one inclusive plan. Trust Tairāwhiti has committed to a collaborative approach with regional leaders to develop and action that plan. COVID-19 and the ongoing economic impact will continue to challenge us all. The Trust's role in Rangitapu Ora, the Tairāwhiti Recovery Plan, and TEAP, the Tairāwhiti Economic Action Plan, will remain high in our priorities. The Trust must continue to collaborate with other regional leaders to achieve the best possible outcome for our communities. I'm now going to hand over to the Trust Tairāwhiti Chief Executive, Gav Murphy, who will discuss significant highlights from a big year of mahi for himself and his team. Over to you, Gav.
Thank you, Chair. Tuia e runga, tuia e raro, tuia e roto, tuia e waho, tuia te here tangata e painei. Tēnā koutou katoa. E te tā Derek, aku mihi nui ki a koe, no te hui te whakatuwhera I runga I te karakia, me te mihi hoki. Ka mihi hoki ahau ki te atua, nana nei, nā mea katoa. Ki te whare tu nei, te kura o tūranga o tāne. Ka mihi. Ki nā mana whenua, nā I tāwhiri. Koutou nā iwi o te Tairāwhiti, Rongwhakata, nā I Tamanuhiri, te aitanga Maki, te aitanga Hauiti, nā te Parau. Me mihi ka tika. kia koutou katoa. Ka huri au ki a rātou mā, kui a wehe atu ki te pō, haere atu koutou, tā koutou rangamārie. Kia tātou ta hunga ora, tēnei te mihi anō kia tātou katoa. Nau mā hare mai, kia tau tātou me hui a tau. He pō, whakahere tēnei, ka hui arina, ka tueri mātou, he rangitapu, he tohu ora. Nā mihi nui ki aku, kui au whaiwā te hare mai, nau whakanui I tēnei wā miharo. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome everybody. A special night for us, our AGM obviously, but importantly, and as I said in my mihi, we share our new Wellbeing Framework, he Rangitapu, he Tohu Ora with you all. So thank you for finding the time for coming out tonight and acknowledging this with us. We continue to be involved in so many projects throughout the year that trying to figure out how to summarise and highlight them all. We'll be here all night. The kai will get cold and we won't be able to join other refreshments. So I just want to touch on some of the highlights we have and then play a video because it's far more interesting than listening to me speak to try and capture a year and what a year it's been. And we've got our annual report available after the meeting, so please do grab a copy of this on your way out. There's a heap of information and stories in there. This year we've got a lot of stuff with QR codes, so there's a lot of video content you can scan with your phone and go and see more of the depth of the stories of the people we work with and the partnerships we've had. So please do that and grab a copy. Hoi anō, in terms of the high-level financial performance of the Trust in 2020, and what a year 2020 has been. We had some operational headwinds affecting the overall financial performance, and of course the year ended with COVID impacting us all, as the Chair has touched on. And I'm sure Matt will give a bit more detail in terms of some of the impacts from Eastern Group perspective, but the impact of the electricity revenue reduction as a result of the Commerce Commission's new regulated price path and some of the weather events we saw at the port certainly impacted on revenue. Then in February we had the China closure pre our lockdown, which impacted the forestry supply chain, including the port, and then of course lockdown impacted us all. Our sawmill operator out at the Prime Wood Cluster Centre of Excellence closed their doors permanently as a result of lockdown, and their operations were retrenched, meaning our financial statements show an impairment of our equity in Spectrum Group, who were the operators in the sawmill, which we were supporting, of $2.9 million. We continue to hold the capital notes loan in Spectrum Group, which is due in 2021, and are monitoring the remaining operations carefully. And at the time the financial accounts were produced, the managed fund portfolio looked after by Craig's locally was down close to 20%, as I'm sure a lot of you would have seen with KiwiSaver and other investments, and at its lowest point hovered around $42 million. However, given the impacts we were seeing before COVID and then of COVID nationally and globally, and some of these challenges, overall I think the Trust has weathered the headwinds and is standing up pretty well. For example, as of today, the Craig's managed fund portfolio is back to our pre-COVID levels and over $51 million. So, in terms of the overall results for the Trust across the key trust deed obligations, the 31st of March, the amount available for income beneficiaries was $128 million, up from $124.5 million last year. And this is the amount determined by trustees available to income beneficiaries. And finding a balance between the amount available to spend now and retention for future generations and future income beneficiaries through until 2073 when the trustee ends is a critical consideration and a fundamental equity consideration for us. In terms of the preserved capital of the Trust, it's at $249.2 million, up from $208.9 million last year. Gisborne District Council is the capital beneficiary of the Trust, and preserving capital is the key to the long-term financial sustainability. A significant amount of the $40 million increase is due to the revaluation of Eastern Group's generation assets during the year. So the Trust Fund in total stands at $377.3 million, up from $333 last year, and overall, given the current circumstances, this is a pleasing result. In terms of the providing for the beneficiaries, the other fundamental tenet of our trust deed, the following is a high-level summary of that funding. During the year we distributed through grants and distributions $9.8 million, and this enables the Trust to focus and work with partners on their efforts towards regional wellbeing through the various partnerships and community groups. This year that included a $5 million distribution towards the airport terminal building, as the Chair mentioned. We invested $2.8 million in economic tourism and community development activities and operations, so our people, direct operational funding, trying to support activities. And while these critical drivers have made good progress in recent years with the Trust support, further commitment is required to strengthen the economic and community resilience and maximise regional opportunities under He Tohu Ora. And we'll do this in partnership with iwi, business and industry, the Council and other key regional stakeholders via forums like the Tairāwhiti Economic Action Plan and Rangitapu Ora. True partnership is the only way we will unlock our region's real potential. The Trust will also continue to advocate for additional external investment. In the last year we leveraged our $2.8 million and secured $1.7 million of operating external funding to support our activities. And you would have seen the most recent example of that yesterday, I think, where MB announced tourism funding support for the region of $400,000. During the year we also continued our direct capital investment program and invested $4.4 million. This year it was further investment to support the sawmill operations and wood engineering business out at our Prime Wood Centre Cluster of Excellence. So overall the Trust invested $17 million into the wellbeing of Tairāwhiti in the financial year finished. And before we play the video, I just want to touch on a few other key points. We continue to invest in the necessary local infrastructure and starting up nature of wood processing in the region to act as a catalyst to grow wood processing. This investment continues to demonstrate our commitment to the market intervention and some of the goals set out in the Tairāwhiti Economic Action Plan. The industry does continue to face short-term challenges, and during lockdown we had to work through the process of closing the sawmill and a sawmill operator walking away, finding a new sawmill operator, keeping in contact with all the employees that had been at the mill, and pleasingly over that period we were able to work with a new operator, Kiwi Lumber, and bring them onto the site, and over 30 of the 41 employees that were at that site have gone back working with Kiwi. However, in the medium term the outlook is positive as the sector embraces new technologies and develop new high-value products. Our belief in a market intervention to support the wood processing for economic resilience, economic diversity, the direct and indirect employment outcomes that it achieves, and to create higher value and higher margin products for the region out of our pine trees is still fundamentally right. Over the last few years, the Trust has actually invested $19 million into wood processing, including acquiring the original Prime site. But it's important to remember that this has now been leveraged to a commitment of $30 million from the government into the Tairāwhiti Wood Processing Centre of Excellence. And a huge part of this has been with the Provincial Growth Fund, and their local team has been excellent to work with as they've supported us. The Trust also continues to support many small to local medium businesses as they progress on their journey in tourism. Trust Tairāwhiti continues to invest in relationships with regional tourism operators, iwi, tourism stakeholders and national partners to ensure the industry is aligned and positioned for growth opportunities beyond the next peak season and eventually as international tourism activity returns at some point in the future. A busy year in tourism has resulted in commercial partnerships with Stuff, with Air New Zealand and with Tourism New Zealand. These partnerships are significant for our region to support our small medium business sector, and particularly our tourism businesses or those with tourism aspirations, and are driven by leveraging our relationships and having a great team working on the ground. I mean, clearly tourism was impacted at the end of the year by COVID, but given our tourism market has been over 80% domestic tourism, and that market continues to exist, while our current marketing strategies are pivoting and we're having to work and review them, for the most part the plans we had remain fundamentally sound. Continuing with our small to medium business support, our business team have worked with over 200 businesses in the last year and through the COVID lockdown period. Over $500,000 has been invested or funded into these businesses for training and development, investigation and research, feasibility studies, strategic and business planning and much more. This includes the work we've done with our key partners through the Regional Business Partner Network, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise and Callaghan Innovation, but also significant trust putia as well. Our team have delivered over 18 events to support businesses and their aspirations and their engagements, and the team also supports the programs like the TEEP with human resources and our team with program management. We're also working with a number of sort of medium-sized businesses to support their growth aspirations, places like Commerce Place industrial park we've got out just by the airport there, businesses like Rua Bioscience and others. We often don't talk about those because they're commercially sensitive to the businesses involved, but they are significant. And then there's other funding support for things like Mātai Lab. And we think that's a really good example of the importance of being able to show our rangatahi, the link between the education they're getting, the STEAM subjects at school, places like when they go to Kornui CoLab, and what this means in terms of career pathways into the tech sector with entities like Mātai and wood engineering business. Our ongoing partnership and support for various community groups is huge and really critical for us in terms of delivering He Tohu Ora. And I had a list of about 3 pages long of all the community groups we wanted to shout out to, and in the end, we've tried to capture them all in this video clip we'd like to show you because they are just so cool. The work they do is amazing, and there's so many of them, and we are really privileged to work with them. So we'll hopefully share that now, and you'll get a good flavour of what has been an incredibly busy year for the team.
Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Will. No mai haere mai, ki Tātau.
From the beautiful Tātau Bay on the sunny east coast.
Kia mau ki tō kaipo, kia mau hoki ki tō whānau, kia mau ki tō kaipo, I tangata ai koe, I hari mai a koe, kia mau ki tō kaipo, kia mau hoki ki tō whānau, kia mau ki tō kaipo. Tangata whai a hore, pakari ana te tūmai, whakatū ana, pare ana te ao, te huki mai, te auraki mai, maro ana ia te mana, he ao huri huri, he ao hori hori, tā weko ana, te taura tangata.
Let Tairāwhiti tell us what it needs. Let the environment tell us what it needs. Open our ears and our eyes to the messages that it's telling us and be able to adapt and respond to those issues.
Surf lifesaving here nationally and within Tairāwhiti, we have a vision that no one drowns on our beaches, and this is key to the development of fitter, faster, stronger lifeguards so that our community can all feel safe.
Here with the Edmonds family, what are you guys up to? Level 2.
We're just out about getting babies some winter clothes.
Today is our first day of opening under level 2. It feels amazing.
I think as long as people remember to support local, I think we're going to be okay.
I guess what we wanted to achieve through Pukora is to inspire others to start their journey. It doesn't matter how big you are, what stage you're at.
Can't really thank Trust Tairāwhiti enough, supporting us not only with the funding to help get us started, but just also with guidance and advice along the way to actually get us to where we are now. Without them, we wouldn't have got the Provincial Growth Fund funding. We needed that local support. The MRI machine we're getting, we really kind of see it as a bit of a, excuse the pun, but a bit of a magnet for attracting scientists and clinicians to the region, and also as a magnet for sort of helping us with education and training in the high-tech health space.
I have been looking at the accelerated pace of change, and it is important to note that this is happening because it creates huge entrepreneurial opportunities, and it will change you as much as you have the opportunity to change your community.
The insulation, it traps the heat a lot more, so it takes longer to cool down, and you don't have to have the heat pump on as high either.
Yeah, thanks a good lot that she's helping us to get someone helping us. Some people, they've been, they whakamā of going seek help, but the help is out there.
Wendy reached out to me about 9 months ago. We had a great discussion. In that discussion, it became apparent that I needed help in the business. Through the mentoring program, we've been successful in getting funding through the Provincial Growth Fund, and that will give us the opportunity over the next 2 years to go from 6 permanent employees up to 50, which is huge for us.
The funding gave us the freedom to be able to explore what could whakarua be like at its best. The facilities are the best facilities that we've got on the coast at the moment, absolutely, by far. The community can be proud of the facility that we've got. So actually, Trust Tairāwhiti's investment in our renovation has helped us aspire to bigger, better, greater things as a community.
So, no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa.
That was just a snippet of some of the stuff that's in here, so please do grab a copy and have a look through it. So many great stories. I mean, the home insulation scheme, over 6,600 houses in the Tairāwhiti have now had home insulation through the Trust Tairāwhiti ECA program. Let's Shop Tairāwhiti campaign, you know, why did we need COVID to get that going? But man, standing that up, the team that stood that up in COVID, and it's just gone on to strength and strength. So many great stories. Finally, I'd just like to thank my team for their continued commitment to our region. Just a privilege to work alongside other people who really exemplify our values. Te mana, te ihi, te wehi, e kaha ana koutou, te mahi, nā taku mihi nui kia koutou katoa. I'm proud to be part of a great team, and I just really thank them for their efforts during the year. And with that said, I'd like to hand over to Matt Todd now to give us a bit of a sense of Eastland Group and how the highlights for the year and what they see in the year coming. Thank you, Gav. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's great to be standing up here in front of you all on a relatively cold Thursday night in the Tairāwhiti. First of all, I think we need to recognise it's been an incredibly challenging time for all of us. What we've been through this year, for me, for you, for my team, for everybody. And I kind of wake up every day and you're trying to operate in an environment that's both unprecedented, but it's also uncertain, and you don't know what tomorrow's bringing. And so I wanted to acknowledge the resilience of our staff and our teams, but also of the community that I just think pulled together in a wonderful way to get us to where we have through our journey through COVID. And as Paul said, this is not our AGM. I'll try and keep what I'm saying short, but we are the commercial arm of Trust Tairāwhiti, and we're proud of who we are and the role that we play in supporting them and their objectives. Yes, we're tasked with running regional infrastructure, essential infrastructure, but we're also here to make commercial returns and to try and deliver benefits to Trust Tairāwhiti. So our financial year finishes on 31st of March, so that was kind of in the middle of lockdown. And we had a number of challenges last year, and I'll speak to those briefly in a minute. But we did manage to make a profit of $18.5 million. It was our second best year. It wasn't a record. We also welcomed 2 new directors, John Nichols and Wendy Harvey. They're both here tonight. Tracked them down and have a conversation with them. And as per the slide, we returned $12.3 million by way of dividends and distributions, interest on capital notes to the shareholder, which allows them to do some of the wonderful things that they do. It was a really tough year for Eastland Port. Kind of this time last year, the port was closed. We just had weather event after weather event after weather event come through. Logs piled up. We were unable to get them out. As spring arrived, it improved somewhat. And we got through most of summer, and then in February COVID hit. The port and the forestry sector were impacted first and foremost within this region as China went into lockdown. It was pretty dire there for a couple of months. And yet some way through all of that uncertainty, we managed to deliver just on
2.9 million tonnes of logs exported. And the port continued to play their part by holding community events, doing and pursuing environmental initiatives. They opened the new wharfside log yard, and they also put the new Turanga walkway track around the bottom of Kaiti Hill. And I guess one of the talking points and one of the things we're really proud of this year is what we've achieved, or at least partly achieved, with the new airport. We think it's iconic, we think it's unique to who we are as a people, and we're really proud that we're in partnership with Ngāi Tāwhiti to deliver it. It sits on their whenua, and we hope it's something that's going to be truly symbolic for this region. Of all the things we've done in the time I've been here, that's the one thing that I've had the most consistent positive comment about it. So don't burst my bubble tonight, okay? And look, given Gisborne's isolation, the airport is just a vital piece of infrastructure. Yes, it's going to look fantastic, but it's also there to serve a purpose. So last year we had numbers slightly up on the year before, not a whole lot, and then of course COVID happened and we had pretty much none. There was a handful of people coming in. But the interesting thing is that it's rebounded really strongly. So we're back up to about 80% of where we were pre-COVID. We had the Air New Zealand CEO here last week, and he said that the regions have rebounded pretty strongly, but of the regions, Gisborne's rebounded the strongest of them all. So it's interesting. I don't know how much we can read into that, but it's good to see the aircraft flying again. The network, it sits there and it continues to provide electricity so we can do all the things that we do with technology and what we need to operate within our homes and businesses. And that was really, really critical during lockdown. We were very aware that people were sitting at home and they needed electricity. So we stopped all planned, all non-critical work so that we could do our best to keep power to the people, which has created a bit of a backlog in terms of work, which the guys are doing a really good job of catching up on. We distribute a little bit more electricity, and we are seeing some growth in terms of electricity connection numbers. And we've been spending a lot of time on trying to understand how we can improve the electricity capacity and resilience in this region. So we're looking at, can we put in cost-effective transmission lines, or can we look at alternative ways where we coalesce a group of like wind and solar and perhaps other forms of energy and storage to meet our needs. So we're not at capacity yet, but if we see large-scale processing, for instance, then we'll start to run out of electricity capacity, and we need to be in front of that. The network also did some really cool things like sponsoring the Science and Technology Fair, which I think they did for a second time. That was a lot of fun to be a part of. Eastern Generation, and in particular our new Te Ahi o Maui project that had its first full year in operation. As a result of that, of getting it complete, getting it up and running, we were able to realise a project development margin of over $40 million through revaluation. That was something we set out to achieve when we commenced the project, and it's really, really gratifying to see that being realised. Generation was also an essential service, essential business during lockdown. We needed to keep it running. And I guess one of the things that when I look across our businesses is just how that diversity of those businesses helped us stay in relatively good shape during COVID. And of course, the geothermal plants along with our hydro plant are playing their part in trying to move us towards a fully renewable energy future, which we're really happy to be a part of. So looking forward, we know this year is going to be tough. We had a shocking month in March and April. We don't have many months when we make losses, and we made a big loss in April. I guess on the positive side, we've rebounded pretty strongly, and that is gratifying. But what you kind of wonder whether there aren't still a few dark clouds just over the horizon. I don't think we've seen the last of COVID, if not in New Zealand, the implications and the impacts of it globally. So we continue to look for new geothermal projects. We haven't committed to building anything as yet, but we do think that is an important growth strategy for us. And as I said, exploring other renewable energy projects within the Tairāwhiti. We're also looking at continuing to future-proof the port. We want to have a port that's able to provide avenues for other product. We don't want to be just a log export port. We want to be a port that can export containers, that can export kiwi fruit and apples and the other products that this wonderful region of ours grows. And together with the Trust, we've joined, as Gavin said, the Climate Leaders Coalition. So we're focused on trying to drive down our carbon footprint, and that's a long-term journey. So I haven't got anything else to say. I just thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'll hand back to Paul.
So we've been banging on all night about this Wellbeing Framework, and so the time has come to tell you about it and tell you why we've been giving it such a big build-up. This is really important to us. There's a massive amount of work gone into it, and we think it's going to be a useful thing for us in the decision-making that we have to make and possibly choosing between different projects to support. We think also it's going to help us to discharge our accountability to you in the decisions that we make about the things that we're going to do. So, he Rangitapu, he Tohu Ora, Tairāwhiti Wellbeing Framework. This project started in 2018 as part of a strategic review that trustees undertook. We wanted to understand more about wellbeing, and we wanted to know if our decisions were making a positive impact and enhancing the wellbeing of our communities. We did research to understand how other regions, communities and central government here and around the world were grappling with the idea of wellbeing. In 2019, these research findings were published in a report called Tohu Ora Tātau, Living Well Together. This gave us a baseline understanding of how wellbeing frameworks were being developed. It gave us a starting point to talk to people, whānau and communities across Tairāwhiti about the things that matter most to us. We've gone far and wide, engaging over 1,200 people in our region as we undertook this work. It won't be any surprise to you to know that we received a substantial amount of feedback from our year-long engagement. People didn't let us die wondering about what they thought. The engagement also helped to identify Tairāwhiti-centric wellbeing priorities and, really importantly, language that made more sense to our communities. There were some themes that emerged from our discussions, and I just want to talk a little bit about those. The first is facilities. Facilities was a common theme that emerged from the engagement data. More specifically, sports and recreation, community hubs and retail. People spoke about the importance of having access to and having a wide choice of suitable facilities. They also talked about the importance of facilities that our children and young people can access. This feedback reaffirms the work the Trust currently supports in this space. Alongside other partners, the Trust supports a collective approach to creating a regional facilities plan. We are mindful that we cannot sustain investment into facilities alone. What we can do is leverage the Trust's operational capacity to support securing partners and other investors both locally and nationally. The second theme that emerged strongly was children and young people. People told us that focusing on the well-being of our children and young people ensures the future prosperity of the region will be in good hands. The third theme was mental health and overall health. One of the things that matters most to those we engage is that people in whānau are healthy, happy, and able to pursue the things they value to flourish. We are mindful that mental and overall health is a priority across our communities. Still, we are also clear it's a core function of and funded via our public health system. We don't aim to duplicate existing funding systems, but want to focus more on how we can partner, collaborate and advocate for enhanced health outcomes in our communities. The fourth theme was learning and education. People told us they wanted children and young people to have access to learning and education that is engaging, ignites their curiosity and focuses on their strengths. Feedback included a desire for better workplace training, community education and the opportunity to transfer skills and knowledge between people as well as across generations. Trust staff and trustees work together to consider if the themes I've just run through made sense in the context of our experiences working with communities and businesses in the region. We considered what does good look like and what is our role. Co-designing the framework was a significant journey from baseline research to extensive engagement, connecting back to our trust deed and operations, through to having the technical support to understand the impact. Each of these stages has contributed to something that we're now able to utilise as a dynamic framework. So I'd like you to turn your attention again to the screen. We'll give you another movie, or in this case an animation, which will introduce Rangitapu Tohu Ora Tairāwhiti Wellbeing Framework.
Hei kona koe te rātu mai ai tū ki te pua tū ki taitu, tū ki mai nene tū ki marua nuku. The foundation of our tohu are two supporting po, kia tangata rite, equity, kia toi tū, sustainability. Te tāhu symbolises integrity, kia mauri tū. At the centre of our waharoa is a door, a tātau that is always open for our people. It is the gateway on the path to well-being. The rito pattern represents the many lives that make up our communities, our whānau, our hapu, our iwi. Lives that are woven together in the sacred whiripapa pattern, acknowledging those who have come before us and those whose future depends on us. Inside the whiripapa pattern are the muka, renowned for its enduring strength. Our muka represent well-being outcomes for Tairāwhiti, ohanga, economy, tū tangata, cultural integrity, mātauranga, knowledge, hapori, communities, taiao, environment, and tūhono, relationships. We welcome you through our waharoa. Let's work together to weave the lives we value in ways that matter to us. He Rangitapu, he Tohu Ora. We are Trust Tairāwhiti. Tātau Tātau.
So what all of this embodies for us is that we, the people, whānau and communities of Tairāwhiti, are able to live the lives we value in the ways that matter to us. This is why we've done this work here. One of the things that became really apparent to us as we did this work was just how poorly represented we are in national statistics. You need a PhD in something even bigger than statistics to actually extract our data. Stats New Zealand data keeps on talking about the average New Zealander, whoever he, she or it may be. Certainly doesn't seem to be that useful to us here. So we've become increasingly aware that one of the important co-benefits of us doing this work is that we end up understanding about our own communities, and we're able to track our own progress against indicators and measures that matter to us. And I think that's incredibly empowering, not just for the Trust, but for all of us in our communities who are working really hard to try to make a difference. This is an aspirational framework providing us with a guiding set of outcomes to align our strategy, our operations and our investments, providing a clear line of sight between what we do, what we invest in and why we do it. In terms of next steps to operationalise He Tohu Ora, which we set out in our statement of intent, there are a number of key elements, key pieces of work that are going to occur in the immediate future. Developing indicators, developing an impact and investment tool which will help guide decisions, releasing a distribution strategy and application requirements, and releasing a new online application system. If you look at the screen, you'll see the statements that describe each of the 6 muka, tūpō and tahu that make up he Rangitapu, he Tohu Ora. Within each outcome statement, you will see subdomains highlighted in bold. These subdomains will be underpinned by a set of indicators, the sum of which will support the Trust to build an understanding of whether well-being across the region, according to our framework, is getting better or worse. Now, it's really important to notice that these are aspirational. These are things that are going to take a long time to achieve, and numbers of them, I would respectfully suggest, won't be achieved in the lifetime of those of us in the room at the moment sprouting more grey than anything else. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have them, and doesn't mean that you shouldn't work exhaustively towards achieving them, because the effort that's going to be required to move the needle on some of these is intergenerational. The effort that's going to have to be required to move the needle on these isn't going to be down to Trust Tairāwhiti. It's going to be down to all of us, and all of us finding ways to work collectively to leverage what we've got to get the best possible advantage. So we make no apologies for the aspiration that's sit in these statements. To operationalise the framework, we need to shift it from this high-level concept to one that's able to be applied in practice. Creating an impact investment and assessment tool provides us with an assessment checklist that directly correlates to the muka. It focuses us to make our decisions based on some clear assessment questions, guidelines and formulae that link directly to the framework. Again, our distribution strategy and application requirements will provide clear guidelines on the framework, what we're trying to achieve and why, and application questions will correlate directly to the framework. We'll also be looking at gathering measures at a program, project or activity level. Our staff will ensure that you are supported through this process. This is not a barrier to making applications to Trust Tairāwhiti. Please understand that. We will work with you to bring your applications forward. There's a learning journey for all of us in this. Our staff are currently building the online system that allows you to apply and submit reports online. So how will we know that we're making good decisions? It's essential to understand what to measure that can indicate whether the overall well-being of the region is improving or not. Consider employment as an example. Creating more jobs in Tairāwhiti will address a priority. But if the jobs are paying minimum wage or have long hours, people's sense of well-being or life satisfaction may actually be decreasing. They are not earning enough to cover necessities. Their work-life balance is compromised and their job security is limited. Traditionally, an assumption that an increase in job numbers was a sufficient enough measure in itself to ensure enhanced well-being is no longer the case. This is a lot to take in. We've laid a lot on you tonight, and trustees have been wrestling with this for months. So what we're telling you is there's a reveal occurred, but we'll be focusing on each muka individually and presenting a range of communications and having discussions that go into more detail. As always, we ask you to speak with us if you have any questions. Ko nohi ki te kanohi, face to face. What matters to you? Now, from what I've outlined to you, it's pretty clear that work around this framework, its implementation, and working with you to mature our system of applications and so on to meet this framework is going to be a big part of the work we propose in our statement of intent for the coming year. So as I move now to the next item on the agenda, which is the statement of intent, I'm just going to briefly outline several other highlights in addition to the work around the framework which we're going to be undertaking this year. Our role in Rangitapu Ora, the Tairāwhiti Action Plan, and TEEP. Secondly, the Eastland Group Triennial Review, which is a review we are required by our trustee to undertake every 3 years. And we are looking for this review to result in a greater alignment between Eastland Group strategies, the trust deed, and Tohu Ora. Climate change leadership, including an emissions profile with Eastland Group and regional emissions reduction plan with Gisborne District Council. A best for region approach to regional infrastructure in partnership with regional partners. Continuing our economic development initiatives, including wood processing, growing our tech and innovation, support for small to medium businesses, including growth and resilience, employability skills, tourism, including regional promotion and partnerships that will result in employment opportunities and domestic visitor spend, the evolution of our Shop Local campaign. Community outcomes, including community and voluntary sector distributions of up to $5 million, and funding and resourcing to assist regional communities' facilities delivery. Now, there are statements of the SOI at the back of the room for you to take home with you tonight for your reading pleasure. Don't read it too close to going to bed, or you'll be so excited you won't be able to sleep. It's a hard sell to sell a statement of intent. I'm moving now to the next item on the agenda, which is the formal part of the meeting where I need to put the motions concerning financial statements, auditors and the like. So what I'm going to do is to put the motion. I'm going to ask for someone to second the motion, stating their name when they second the motion, and then I'm going to call for a vote on each. So the first is the 2019-20 financial statements and annual report. And the motion is that the Trust Tairāwhiti consolidated financial statements and annual report for the year ended 31st of March 2020 be received and noted. Is there a seconder to that motion? Karen Johansson has... I'm sorry? Thanks, Michael. Thank you. If I can just respond to some of the things that Michael's raised. I appreciate them. Look, we're doing our best here to try to provide information, and we'll continue to try to do better than that. With respect to Eastland Group's performance, I would respectfully remind Michael that Eastland Group Limited is a company that's owned by the trustees, and it has a separate annual general meeting. So just want to make that point. With respect to the statement of intent, we're asking you tonight to receive it. We're not asking you to approve it, and you never have been asked to approve it, because that's not the process that's ever been followed for as long as I've been on the trust board. And certainly, Michael, while you chaired it, that was not the process that was followed. So it is a bit...
Thanks, Mike, and it has been available on our website for a period of time now.
So I think taking Michael's point, and we don't need an interrogation here to be quite blunt, taking Michael's point, the thing that we probably need to do better is to communicate to you the statement of intent is available for you to see. The fact is it's only just been printed to be ready to give to you tonight. So I'll take those points on board. So Michael, you have been happy to move that the financial statements and annual report be received and noted. Your Worship, are you seconding that motion? Thank you very much. So I now put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? That motion is carried. The second motion concerns the appointment of auditor. The motion is that Deloitte be reappointed as the trust auditor, so Trust Tairāwhiti's auditor, which includes the audit of Eastland Group. This is because our accounts are audited as the one, for a period from the conclusion of this annual meeting until the conclusion of the next annual meeting. So I will move that motion from the chair and ask if there is a seconder to that motion.
Yeah, somebody pull.
Thank you. Thanks, Samuel. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. The third is the audit fee. Now, there's some things for me to say about the audit fee. This comes in two bites. Bite number one is a cost of $35,000, which is fixed by trustees to audit the accounts of Trust Tairāwhiti. There is a larger amount which rests with the directors of Eastland Group Limited to approve for the audit of Eastland Group Limited. Now, last year, I think that was $270,000. So I need to be clear here. The responsibility for agreeing the fee for the audit of the group rests with the board of the group. The responsibility for the audit fee relating to the trust rests with your trustees. So I'll just give you that explanation before I then put the motion, which is that the remuneration of the auditor for the period from the conclusion of this annual meeting until the conclusion of the next annual meeting, in the case of Trust Tairāwhiti, be fixed by trustees. This is estimated to be $35,000. In the case of Eastland Group Limited, be fixed by the directors of Eastland Group Limited and approved by trustees in their capacity as shareholders. That being estimated at $270,000. I will put that motion from the chair and seek a seconder. Thank you, Michael. Seconded by Michael Muir. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. The last concerns the Trust Tairāwhiti 2020-21 Statement of Intent. The motion is the Statement of Intent for the 2019-2020 year be received and noted. Taking on board the comments that Michael's made, I am sure that if any of you have a desire to interact with the Trust, to talk to us further about what is in that SOI document, we will be really ready, willing and able to speak with you on that. So I would ask, as I put this motion, for you to know that we've got an expectation that a number of you will want to talk to us about it, and we'll welcome those approaches. So the motion is the Statement of Intent be received and noted. I move that from the chair. Is there a seconder?
Question?
Yes?
Why is there a difference in the years? 2020, 2021, and 2019, 2020?
It's actually it's because I stuffed up. And I should kind of know that. So I'll restate the motion. The motion is the statement of intent for the 2020-2021 year be received and noted.
Well done, Norman.
Thank you, sir. Is there a seconder for the correct motion? Karen Johansson, thank you very much. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. We now come to the general business questions and contributions part of the meeting. Just to get us kicked off on this, we have been provided a number of written questions ahead of the AGM by Colin Sowerby, who's happy that we read these questions out and answer them. Since they are actually questions that I'm sure have occurred to more than one or two of you in the room, we thought that a really good way to start this out would be to read Colin's questions and provide those answers, and then continue on. So the first question is, why are the 2020 consolidated statements so much more complicated than the 2018 ones, which clearly showed the trust and group activities separately? Well, it won't surprise you to know that we actually believe it's clearer. Go figure. We disclose the trust operating activity separately under Note 6. So in the consolidated accounts, what is Trust Tairāwhiti specific is disclosed under Note 6, which can now be compared to the Statement of Intent budgets. The group activities in 2018 have always been the consolidated group of the trust, including all subsidiaries, so never represented solely Eastland Group accounts, which they now do. The second question that Colin referred to us, which I'm sure will be of interest to many of you. What was the approximate cost of changing the trust name from Eastland Community Trust to Trust Tairāwhiti, and what benefit has been achieved? So, we spent approximately $300,000. This included months of engagement, the development of the name, revised vision and kaupapa for Trust Tairāwhiti, development of brand and associated creative, including photography and video assets, some of which you've experienced tonight, cultural direction, our launch function. It was important for the Trust to share our new identity first with the many people and organisations who had supported its creation. Some signage and banners, some of which you can see in the room tonight. The process and spend ended up covering a significant amount of our community engagement activity too. And all of the He Tohu Ora work tonight came through the original work. We think the benefits speak for themselves. It represents the region, it represents us, it cements a vision and kaupapa for the Trust and the region, and it connects us to the communities of Tairāwhiti. The breadth of communities represented here tonight and at last year's AGM gives us that confidence. Colin's raised a third question which was quite long, which we've taken the liberty of condensing, and we think his question relates to two main points. The first is, are employed executives of the Trust or Eastland Group paid director fees in addition to their remuneration when they are directors of subsidiary or associated companies such as Flick or Wet Limited? And two, would the Trust be prepared to disclose this, were this the case in the accounts going forward, as Colin also raised at the 2018 Annual General Meeting? So, firstly, we can confirm that no trust employees are paid any director fees for subsidiary director roles. Their remuneration stands alone. Trustees are happy to consider adding the disclosure to next year's financials if it is needed, and will consider this as a matter arising from this meeting. Where Trust Tairāwhiti has appointed independent directors, that is, people who are not employees of the trust, to subsidiaries, then these directors are remunerated by those subsidiaries in accordance with market. With respect to EGL executives, I must respectfully turn to my colleague, Mā Tānaku Mahuika, and ask him to respond. Well, you can stay there if you want to. Yeah. Here's a switch.
Actually, first of all, seeing as this is the first time that I'm talking to you, I should remember my manners. Nā reira, kia koe te tuakana. Derek, nā hau I mihi mai ki a mātou, wahara mai ki tēnei teka tō tāua kura ōmua. Nā reira, ka nui ngā mihi atu kia koe, me ngā mihi atu anō ki kia koe, ko whakatā koe I te marama ko tahake, nā reira, I te tuakana tēnā koe. O tira tēnā koutou, ko hara mai tēnei pō. Ki te whakarongo, whakawhiripea I ngā whakaro e pāna ki Trust Tairāwhiti me tō tātou kambu pene o Eastland Group. Nā reira, e hara tēnei te aha, he poto noiho, tēnei tapu mihi atu kia koutou katoa, e hui mai tēnei pō. So, the answer to the question is a very short answer. There's one director who is paid from the executive team, that's Matt. He receives fees in relation to his role as a director of Flick. Those fees are taken into account when we review and set Matt's remuneration. So in other words, it's not something he receives over and above what he is paid. It is something that we recognise he is paid, and we treat it as part of his remuneration when we undertake his review. Kia ora tata.
Right. The next question is, if I'm reading this correctly, an employee's salary has increased from $400,000 to $540,000 in the year ended 31st of March 2020, an increase of $140,000 in 1 year. This seems extraordinary increase. Is this for a trust or Eastland Group employee? Before answering this, it is of course important that I say that we're not prepared to discuss the details of individual people. The privacy of natural persons is something we hold in our society. However, these salary brackets can show the consequences of new employees coming into the business, employees leaving the business, and so include a full assessment of all the benefits components of salaries. So if someone's pay appears to have gone up by, or the salary band appears to have increased by $140,000, that could be due to contractual obligations on exit or other costs that are incurred on someone arriving. And I can tell you that this is not a trust employee, which is the important part of the answer for this audience tonight. The next question, in Trust Tairāwhiti accounts F50, payment to a related party, Diane Murphy, of $82,574. What period of the year does this cover, and is this a full-time or part-time position?
So this relates to Eastland Group, not to Trust Tairāwhiti, but it's consolidated
in the Trust Tairāwhiti account because Eastland's accounts are consolidated in the Trust Tairāwhiti's. It relates to work done at various times throughout the year as a contractor to the Eastland Group. Principally in this instance in relation to work that was done on the emissions measurement project.
Thanks, Mark. Next question. From 2018 to estimated 2021, the trust expenses are forecast to be $6 million compared to $2 million, excluding Activate Tairāwhiti in 2018. Trustee Chairman's fee has increased by 50% from 2018 to 2020. Will there be anything left to distribute?
Where is it?
Yeah, well, the short answer is yes. Most definitely there will be plenty left to distribute, but answering the question, because again, I believe it's a question that will be of interest to people. So the forecast expenses at $6.5 million include Trust Tairāwhiti Limited, the old Activate operating activity in support of economic development and tourism. If you remove economic development operating figure from both figures, so you are comparing like with like, you compare $2 million in 2018 with $3 million in 2021, so an increase of $1 million over that period, forecast over a period where the Trust changed direction and has developed the program you saw tonight. This increase reflects the additional activity being done on behalf of you, the beneficiaries, as we've highlighted this evening. I can categorically state to the meeting, on my mother's grave, that the Chair's fee has not increased by 50%. That doesn't mean, Your Worship, that I don't wish it had, but it definitely has not increased 50%. So, to explain, in financial year 2019, the Council did two things. It increased the fee pool and changed the trustee fee policy to add GST to the trustee fee pool. So GST was paid on top of the fee pool. Leaving aside GST, the Council saw fit to increase trustee fees 2 years ago after a 2-year period, so the Council will only look at trustees' fees every second year. It increased that fee by 27%. As highlighted tonight, there's $128 million of income beneficiary funding available to these beneficiaries over the remaining life of the Trust. We're comfortable that there will be funding. Right, Micah and Briar will now bring a microphone to anyone with a question or comment. So if you could raise your hand so that they can see you. We ask for the record that you clearly state your name before you ask your question or make your observation or comment.
My name is Peter Wooding. Does the Trust agree that the economic well-being of this relatively isolated area depends especially on good transport connections with the rest of New Zealand? And by good transport connections I mean rail. And does the Trust have a role in lobbying central government to obtain the necessary funding to make these things possible? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, and to answer that question, the Trust has got a vital interest in all modes of transport connectivity with this region, with the rest of the country, and indeed with our international markets. By dint of the fact that we own the company that owns and runs the port, I think that there's a strong demonstration of that involvement and that interest. The Trust has also put a not insignificant amount of funding to support the cases that were being brought forward for the case for rail. So we put funding into the economic work that was done to support the case for rail. What I would say to you is that for us putting money into rail is just simply beyond our ability, and we firmly believe that's a responsibility of central government. We believe that all decisions that are made in relation to transport modalities need to be made transparently and clearly, so that we are ensuring the best value for this generation, but importantly the generations to come. That is why we funded or supported the work that was actually done for the case that was brought forward. So in short, I think the Trust has actually acted in the space that you have asked the question on, and has made a contribution to that already.
Kia ora everybody, my name is Peter Jones. I'm the campaign manager for the recently formed New Zealand Public Party, so I'm speaking as a ratepayer. I wonder how many people in this room have watched the video of Jacinda Ardern speaking at the goalkeepers event that was sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates in the international arena, where she committed New Zealand to leading the world in the sustainable development goals. I'm holding here a copy of Agenda 21, which I have produced before, but here it is anyway. And the point being that this used to be called sustainable development. Now then it got changed to smart growth. And I'm wondering whether it is now called regional welfare. I'm not going to read a huge piece of this, just one sentence. This is Agenda 21, Chapter 3, Financial Resources and Mechanisms. And I'm referring to section 33.13, which is titled Means of Implementation. And it says, in general, the financing for the implementation of Agenda 21 will come from a country's own public and private sectors.
Thank you for your statement. Oh, very, very clearly, to answer that question, thank you for your clarification at the end. We are acting in relation to the trust deed which established us, which means that we are working in the interests of the income beneficiaries, which are the people of Tairāwhiti who are ratepayers or have a power connection, and to the and in the interest of the capital beneficiary, which, when the trust is wound up in 2073, is Gisborne District Council. That is the answer to your question.
Kia ora tātou. Kia ora Paul. Congratulations and well done. My name is Victor Walker, for those of you who don't know me. Shame on you. It's a solid shame on you, isn't it? This is Walker. To you and your fellow trustees, Matua Gavin, and your hard-working staff, this isn't a question. This is just an opportunity for me from Uawa, Tohu Ora, where we are Uawa hard, where our blood runs blue, to thank you for the support that you have given Tairāwhiti and the Uawa Tohu Ora community 2019 pre-COVID right up until now. We have We've enjoyed the relationship that we've had with yourself, Paul and Gavin. You attended the myriad events that we held in Ua Bay last year, and you brought your staff with you. We're very, very grateful and appreciative of the support, not necessarily just the funding, but the relationship that we have with you. So on behalf of the 836 people in Tātau Bay tonight, thank you very much. Tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
Kia ora and thank you.
Kia ora, Agnes Walker. Thank you to the Trust. Obviously done a fantastic job. Got to say, I'm used to going to annual general meetings with a few lesser people. But anyway, really proud of the fact that Tairāwhiti is leading out with the Wellbeing Framework. I think it's absolutely marvellous that we had the vision to go and explore and do something so courageous. And I was 100% behind that. But last week, as you well know, we all had a lovely sizzling summit called the Tohu Ora, which was absolutely fabulous. And there we had the wisdom of Dr. Nana Ganesh, and he talked very much about well-being, and he talked about the economy. And so, you know, he, in a 5-minute flat presentation, he turned my perception of the economy upside down and the sense of well-being upside right. And I think so when he talks about the economy, he talks about the scarcity of the resources. And when you talk about well-being, you talk about, you know, it's about creating access to opportunities, providing the ability to participate and the capacity to contribute. And therefore that results in outcomes of shared prosperity and a sense of belonging. And when you think about the vision and all the aspirations of the Trust for us as a people that live in Tairāwhiti, it would be wonderful to continue to explore Dr. Nana Ganesh's concepts around how we can achieve the well-being, because it's important that the measuring of well-being comes back to us individually, whānau and community. Otherwise, all the infrastructure stuff does not necessarily necessitate that it's coming back to us as the peeps. So I'd love to continue the discussion on the well-being. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Patrick Bullock, on behalf of the community, the whole community, through the Eastland Helicopter Rescue Trust, can I just give a big thank you to Paul and Gavin and your respective teams for the support that you give us. Quite clearly, without your support, we wouldn't have a rescue helicopter in this region. And can I report to you that since November, we have increased the level of sophistication of our service many-fold. We've now got a twin-engine helicopter. We can now carry a lot more people. We've now got 6 permanent staff, 2 pilots, 2 crewmen, 2 paramedics who are the equivalent of any paramedic in the country. And so with more sophisticated machinery and equipment on the helicopter, our service is many-fold greater than what it was. We wouldn't have had the confidence to do that without the support of initially ECT and now Trust Tairāwhiti. When we first came along to the Trust, Michael might remember 7 or 8 years ago, we pushed ourselves as being part of the infrastructural part of the district. We were a vital infrastructural thing. But listening to you tonight, talking about well-being, we fit well and truly in that well-being. More especially for our isolated communities. Over 70% of our work is from Tolaga Bay North, in areas where their access to medical services are extremely low. You will remember that when government came out a couple of years ago and pushed for a changed service, we were dropped out. We have the ability with the lobbying power in this district to get smartly in. They tried to cover their tracks by calling it an omission, but the omission was not a typographical error, it was a full-blown thing. So we're in there now, we've got the confidence to push forward, and I can report to you that we are now playing our part along with all the other operators from the Bombay Hills South. We are now part of a group that has 11 helicopters. Any of you who are observant will have seen in the hangar tonight there's a yellow helicopter. That's come from Hamilton because our one's in Auckland having some work done. So we never are without a helicopter like we used to be. The service is great. I can report to you that when there was the eruption on Whakaari White Island, we were the second helicopter there. We took not only one paramedic, but our other one shot in off duty, and we were over there. And with the equipment that we downloaded on board, we could foot it with all the big guys. Our facilities at the airport are the envy of most of the other groups that we're part of, and we've got a really committed team out there who want to live in Gisborne and want to work. So none of this would have been possible without you. It wouldn't be possible to carry on without you, so we make that point pretty clear. But thank you very much, and I say that on behalf of everybody, because with our increased service, so we're not only servicing the isolated parts of the district, we can now provide that emergency transfer of patients from Gisborne Hospital to the tertiary hospitals like Waikato. So we bring them down from the coast. If they need to go further, they're straight over there. If Gisborne residents often used to ask me, why should I support the helicopter? Well, if you have a bad stroke or something and you need to get up there quick, we can do it now far faster than bringing a helicopter in. So thank you very much. We look forward to strengthening what we think is a bloody good partnership with you guys.
Kia ora, it's Peter Shaw. I'm actually representing a few things. So firstly, I'd like to thank all of you at the Trust and Eastland Group for supporting Gisborne City Vintage Trail. We've had your support for years, and we hope, like the Helicopter Trust, it will continue. And I enjoy your nodding. Thank you, Kevin. On my other side, Tourism Eastland and the East Coast Hawke's Bay Conservation Board. This is my question. You, the Trust, had put some money aside and thought to support the bridge to Titirangi to Pukekohe as the culmination of Tuia 250 and the redevelopment of that site. With the no longer having international tourism, the domestic market is the most important. Now we've always been dominant with the domestic market, but now there are over 30 other RTOs fighting for the domestic market, and it's going to get quite strong. The more international doesn't come. So the question is, do you have in your radar this year to complete this project? Because I know the other funders are waiting really to make sure that the funders are there, because that would make this Department of Conservation icon site a real attraction for Tairāwhiti.
I'm turning now to my Chief Executive.
Good. Yes, we did have and do have some funding that was there that could be considered as part of that, for the bridge and part of that project. The issue we had was that the project scope and the size was significantly, when the cost came in, was significantly more than the project budget and more than the trust had. So the project is going through a process of, and it's not led by us, it's been led out of council, so that's being revisited and we're waiting to see where that gets to. I also know that council have approached other additional funded committees, and not the ones that have got funding set aside, to see if they can also support it and find a way between scope and additional funding to make that project happen.
want to say thank you first and foremost, absolutely. Thank you so much for all the work that has gone into the wellbeing strategy and focus for this region. We know, I know particularly, I asked a question some time back about how are we ensuring wellbeing and the measure of your investment into groups like the sandwich makers, blessed other sandwich makers, and those that, to provide into spaces that have struggled with low income, etc., etc. And so I'm just so grateful. My question is really just post-COVID world, the learnings, pre-COVID and then that time out to the now, has that impacted the Trust's kind of future thinking to be a bit more, well, I guess, different in its approach than rather business as usual? And in the unprecedented nature of this, are there any investments that perhaps we need to really be kind of looking at the risks they pose in an uncertainty? So what's the certainties we have? Are we doing some work in that? And in a post-COVID world, the impacts on those, especially in the least of these spaces, are most vulnerable. Are they prioritised? I just want to keep on with that space because I get worried that we go to business as usual. And there's been a lot of learning. So what's the Trust learned the most through COVID? There's about 15 questions to see. That's me. Gavin knows me well. So I'll just finish with just post-COVID, the learnings and, what's going to be the best thing that could come into the future for us.
So thanks for your question, Meredith. I think if you'll forgive me to answering this at a higher level, all right, because there's a lot in that question. So what I would say to you is, I think the observation of all trustees sitting around our table is that life has changed. There's just no question of that. And I would say in the other companies that I have the privilege of serving on the boards of, exactly the same thing is being said. It's not going to be the same. So we aren't thinking the same as we did before this. I think if you look at He Tohu Ora, you will see that we have got there a device and soon a mechanism to help us make decisions, and that those decisions, if they are made in the context of a wellbeing framework that is integrated and is considering, will meet the test that you've just put to us by dint of the approach that we will then take to the consideration of projects and particular funding applications that come before us. Thank you.
G'day, it's Michael Allen. Look, I was talking to the notes here from the last meeting, and look, I'm a little intrigued about the Male geothermal plant, and given we've just had our first year, full financial year of generation, are you able to update us? It's very difficult to see the accounts, but are you able to update us of the profit return by the geothermal plant in this first year?
Okay, I just remind you, I'm sure that Ma will answer the question, but I just want to remind you and people in the room that this is not the AGM of Eastland Group Limited, but I'm sure Ma will be happy to give you some background on that.
So I'll be happy to give the mic to make time to answer the question. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Look, I can't remember the number off the top of my head. I know we had our business case numbers last year, and the other thing I can say is that post the start of this year, the electricity prices have been incredibly high, and I think we're benefiting out of that. So I'll have to go back and check and give you a specific answer on that. But clearly, the fact that that plant revalued up by about $45 million meant that when they had a look at what it was capable of generating over the rest of its life, it was considerably more than what it cost us to build it. So maybe that's some way to answer your question.
Hi, Kathy Sheldrake from Local Trails Charitable Trust. I'd just like to pass on our thanks to Trust Tairāwhiti for supporting Local Trails for the last 3 years, and look forward to the next 3 years at least. And also shout out to Adam. I don't see where Adam is, but huge shout out to Adam, who's been really supportive of the trust of the trails over the last 3 years. Remember, this is an alternative form of transport. We like to see more of you out there on the trails. We're looking to, get the trails across the stop ends when they are raised through the council, so don't forget about that. And just keep us in mind for the future. Thank you.
Now, I don't want to close people off, but I'm conscious that we are now approaching 7:30, so we've kept you in your seats for a couple of hours. And I'm noticing that we are losing people who clearly have other commitments. So just alerting you to time. So are there any further observations or questions that people wish to put?
Trust provide the most information when they announce the AGM, so people have got time to look at these figures before coming to a meeting. I do not like to come to a meeting without looking at what it's all about. First thing. Secondly, there's the Eastland group going to have an AGM.
Eastland Group, to answer your question in reverse order, Eastland Group has had its AGM. Eastland Group is a private company whose shareholders are the trustees of Trust Tairāwhiti.
Yep.
Secondly, the first part of your question, I think links back to Michael Muir's intervention earlier on, and you have my undertaking that we will ensure that you cite the documents that you wish to cite before we have this meeting. All right then, I just want to turn now to Mātānaku, who has something that he needs to say.
So I'm very conscious I'm standing between everybody and having a drink, but when Paul did the introductions, he noted, of course, that we have John and Wendy, who have been appointed to the board of Eastland Group. We have John Ray, who's sitting a couple of rows back in his suit, but we also have here in the front row Tony Gray. This is Tony's last act as a director of the Eastland Group, and I just wanted to take the opportunity at this Trust Tairāwhiti's AGM to acknowledge Tony, who has been a director on the company for almost 8 years. He has been the chair of the Audit Committee for certainly all of the time that I've been a director on the company, and he has been a wonderful, hard-working director. So he finishes his term tomorrow, and true to form, he still turned up, put on his suit and come to the AGM. So Tony, I know you don't like me making speeches, and I made a couple, but too bad, I'm the chairman. I'd just like to, at the AGM, acknowledge your hard work for our community and for the Eastland Group, and wish you well. It's obviously not the end of the relationship, but it will be the end of your time as a director on our company. So, koe nei taku tino mihi atu kia koe e hoa, te pūkahua o mahi, hei whai painga, hei whai hua, mō ngā iwi me ngā hāpori katoa o te Tairāwhiti. Nā re, tēnā. Koe nei.
Before I ask Sir Derek to close with a karakia, could I just acknowledge the Principal Andrew Turner and the Deputy Principal Tom Cairns of Gisborne Boys High School, and thank you both for making your excellent Assembly Hall available for our meeting tonight.
Kumutu tata, kupai ngā kōrero, ma te kai,
Yeah.
say aye. Wait on a little bit longer. Tēnei wā, ko huri atu ki te tāhuhu o tō tātou whare ki te utukura. Kōrero hia nei nā, i ana kōrero e ki ai, nā te utukura I pupukai te hini ngaro, ka hua te whakaro, ka whānau mai te wānanga. Everything you have said tonight has been taken on board by our trust and will be discussed. Ko reira, e ino e tata, e kore tata. Te whiriku te tapu hairi tua, hairi waho, hairi tuai kua patapata e rere nei ki oki mai, te tawai mahuru. Korau noa, korau ora, korau ora, korau noa. Hui ake, hui te marama, hui te mai ora. Haumi e, hui e. Tāui. One more, eh? Haumi e, hui e. Tāui. Yeah, we're on board. Thank you.
You're invited to stay a little longer for some refreshment.
We must be able to sing any water.